Today, I would like to talk about 10 things we can learn from a narcissist. Many survivors who went through the healing journey will tell you that having been involved with a narcissist was a curse and a blessing in disguise at the same time. That it was a horrible experience, but also a very important, eye-opening, and life-changing lesson they had to learn to lead a healthier and more fulfilling life. I know it sounds counterintuitive, and for those who are still struggling to heal from narcissistic abuse, it may even come across as invalidating, or as if they were trying to diminish the impact this type of a relationship has on its victims. But trust me, they are not. As the old adage goes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or it always gets worse before it gets better. Suddenly, they had this new awareness keeping them safe in this world today. They understood they needed to learn or unlearn a lot of things to find peace and ultimately a harmonious relationship. The first thing you will learn is acceptance. After having been exposed to a narcissist for such a long time and realizing that you are living the same toxic cycle on repeat, you will eventually come to a point where you will accept that the narcissist is not going to change and that in an effort to change anything about the situation, you can only change yourself. We often talk about radical acceptance when it comes to moving on from a narcissistic relationship because the overthinking only keeps you stuck. Without accepting what's done is done and what's in the past, it's very difficult to move on from anything. Some people may call it forgiveness. I personally refrain from using the term forgiveness because it means different things to different people, and it may backfire in legal matters. From my personal experience, feeling forgiveness for a lot of people who had hurt me in my past arrived further down on my healing path. I needed to understand myself first and the circumstances that had brought us together. Realizing a narcissist is trapped in their own cycle of never-ending misery and abuse, and that I was able to turn a negative experience into a positive, it was easier for me to eventually forgive. It was kind of a live and let live approach that allowed me to let go and move on. And with acceptance also comes a lot of self-awareness. I think we can all agree we wouldn't have recognized that we were stuck in an unchangeable situation if we hadn't become aware of something being extremely off around us, or even within ourselves. Maybe it was just a sudden feeling of unease or confusion that made us reflect and start to ask a lot of questions. It's like every relationship with a narcissist has a wake-up call at some point. This exact self-awareness leads to acknowledging our responsibility, which is an important part in the first step toward healing, let alone removing ourselves from a toxic situation in the first place. We switch from being passive to being active, so to speak. And taking responsibility doesn't mean you're to blame for the abuse. It's understanding that you're the only one who can change your life for the better, while so far we didn't have much of a choice due to past trauma, the conditioning that came with it, or even our own toxic and self-sabotaging behaviors we now need to correct. The next thing you will learn when being with a narcissist are the many red flags of narcissistic abuse or other toxic behavior. This knowledge becomes one of your superpowers. Now, this comes with a caveat though. This newly gained wisdom can be very scary at times, and you may find yourself wanting to isolate more in a world full of noise. Many survivors become very closed off after having learned about the red flags of narcissism, myself included in the first few years, because they start seeing narcissistic behavior everywhere, look for red flags, or even begin testing other people. It is truly a curse and a blessing at the same time, and one can easily get obsessed with it. Sometimes it's not fair to the other person. I've learned over time that not everyone is perfect, that everyone displays red flags or toxic behavior here or there, but it's not inherently evil. If I start looking for them, I've obviously reached a point I don't feel comfortable around a certain person and should just let them go. And having learned about the red flags, you will also learn to have boundaries and standards to not invite any of them back into your life. These are listed under the umbrella of self-love. Now, I've heard it a few times before that people think self-love is utterly narcissistic. I beg to differ. If you translate the word with self-respect, I think it becomes clear what self-love actually means in the context of navigating your life around toxic or abusive people. What we also come to realize is that narcissists themselves have a huge problem with personal boundaries. What we thought were boundaries or standards were merely the high expectations of others, entitlement and fear of vulnerability. One day you look at the narcissist and you think, how can someone hate themselves so much that they do this to another person? Because what you're looking at is nothing more than their projected self-hatred, to make themselves feel better, more powerful, more in control of their own out-of-control lives. It's like when our parents used to tell us that the bullies in our schools were only cowards. It didn't make sense to us when we were kids, but as adults, we finally get it now. Misery loves company. We usually didn't love ourselves enough that we ended up in this situation. And now we are learning to love ourselves the right way. And always remember, you can be a nice person and still tell people off. Our empathy needs boundaries because we've been giving it away for free for way too long. Also, no is a complete sentence. It doesn't require any further explanation. We don't have to justify or over-explain our decisions as to why someone needs to leave us alone. The moment we begin to over-explain ourselves is the moment a narcissist or any other controlling person has already got their hooks in an attempt to change our minds. This doesn't make you heartless out of a sudden. Quite the opposite. Those who will respond positively and respectfully to your boundaries are the people who are meant to be in your life. And when it comes to setting boundaries, you also get to know yourself a lot more. Because what are boundaries for? They are not only there to protect your physical space, but also your personal, psychological, and emotional needs. Truth be told, I didn't even know what needs were before I learned about them in counseling. All I knew was that I needed my alone time every now and then to recharge my energy or to process just another fallout I had with a narcissist. But that was about it. After giving ourselves up almost completely to cater to a narcissist's every need, we finally learn that we don't just exist to please other people. You begin to prioritize yourself, and I know that in the beginning this may feel strange or even selfish, but your self-care and physical as well as mental well-being should have the highest priority of all. You cannot show up for others if you don't show up for yourself every now and then. Another thing you will also learn is to ask for support to get your needs met. You realize there's no shame, weakness, or even selfishness attached to asking for help. Some of us had never felt worthy of other people's time or effort before. And narcissists loved us for being self-sufficient and low maintenance, as we did everything for them and were able to take care of ourselves. And when you finally learn to express your needs and stand up for what is important to you, you start learning to build resilience and a lot of self-confidence. You stop playing small, as you may have done all along in your life, and begin to stand up tall to be seen and recognized for the beautiful and talented person that you are, knowing exactly what you have to offer. You deserve to be appreciated just like everyone else, even if you consider yourself a work in progress at the moment. You stop caring what other people may think of you because you know your worth and aren't dependent on other people's presence or validation any longer. Narcissists always have a need to be significant in other people's life. They need other people to validate their existence, just like they need the air to breathe. You, on the other hand, begin to draw all your confidence from within yourself because, come what may, you understand that relationships are fleeting. You know who you are and what you are capable of accomplishing with or without others. And with that same self-confidence, you allow yourself to be your most authentic self. You show vulnerability and don't see it as a weakness any longer. We've learned that narcissists cannot be authentic because they don't allow themselves to be vulnerable, and they invest a lot of time and effort into impression management to fool the public with their flawless image. I don't know about you, but once I had become my most authentic self, I always began hating myself when I couldn't be real. Like when I exposed myself to another toxic environment over a long period of time, which was usually at my workplace. When my authenticity is threatened, sometimes to the point I don't recognize myself in the mirror anymore, I always take it as a warning that it's time to move on. Change has become less scary to me once I had really gotten to know and trust myself. Another thing you may notice, but this may not apply to everyone, is your growth in spirituality or closer connection to God, because you've developed into a higher self. I have to admit, when I was spiritually abused in my own relationship, I began to question God a lot afterward, asking him, how can you allow a narcissist to take advantage of you to abuse others? And then I realized God doesn't. He has been punishing narcissists all along. Just look at the miserable life they have been leading before you. They are trapped in their own cycle of abuse, and repeating the same thing, expecting different results, is a sign of insanity, as Albert Einstein used to say. The more I healed and reconnected with myself, the more I realized that God isn't this external force trying to control us. It's something or someone within ourselves, maybe in form of self-love or the love we pass on to other people. Our self-sacrifice and capability to unconditionally love another person, no matter what, has been proven enough while we were involved with a narcissist. And once you're in this state of being connected to your higher self, you will ultimately learn and find your purpose in life. This could come in form of finding the right partner and raise a family together, or maybe a new job or a mission you create for yourself. Quite often, your purpose will simply find you by sheer coincidence. A lot of survivors I know did a 180 in life and found more fulfillment in being independent and self-employed to remove themselves from the shackles and any toxic influence or control they had previously experienced in the corporate world. They started living on their own terms. And again, there's nothing selfish about it. It's a form of self-care or self-protection, if you will. I found purpose in sharing my experience with narcissistic abuse to validate other survivors like you, because I remember how much it helped me too in a world where we get easily misunderstood, discredited, or simply ignored. And with all of that, my last point is that you will learn how to love the right way. I mean, sure, everybody's interpretation of love may differ. However, it's certainly not a power and control dynamic where fear, anxiety, and keeping yourself small are predominant. Mutual love is respecting each other, helping each other grow, and not diminishing yourself. It's not a promise that your next relationships won't be difficult. It's a learning process of trial and error. I had to find that out myself. Always remember, just because you've changed, it doesn't mean you won't be attracting narcissists or any other toxic people anymore. They keep entering our lives because of the bright, shining lights we've now become. Life keeps testing you to see if you've truly learned your lessons. As exhausting as this might be, you cannot close yourself off from the world and these experiences as you are being prepared for what is meant for you. Thank you very much for listening. Stay safe and have a great day.